Welcome to Code Review and Becoming a Developer Journey with Sam and Voy. Third video. This time, Sam didn't have any exercises to complete, but instead over the last 2 weeks, he focused on doing some exercises in edabit. So he was grinding on these core JavaScript skills. Today we're not going to be looking over any code, therefore. We're simply going to be looking at what he's learned over those past 2 weeks and actually moving on to starting to plan some sort of a roadmap for what could be the next steps he could be taking in order to get closer to the D-Day, which would be the day when he'll be able to finally apply to some jobs. Therefore, we create a document in Google Doc where we start writing down things that we still think that he will need to be catching up on. And then we plan what will be the next things that he'll be looking into over the next few weeks. So today's video is going to be a little bit more about just conceptualizing what could be the next steps that Sam could be taking and discussing which of these ideas are better than the others. So as always, hoping that you're going to learn something from this video and hope you enjoy watching these as much as we enjoy recording them. Enjoy! Hello Sam, how are you doing?
Hi boy.
Good to see you.
Good, thank you mate. Yep, another day in the bag.
Perfect.
Looking good so far mate, yeah.
How's the, what's the name, the edabit? How's edabit going?
Yeah, really good, thanks mate. Super glad I found that little website. I've called it the JavaScript gym. And it's definitely...
I noticed,
I think I was a bit puny a couple of weeks ago. Like I couldn't even lift the little weights, but now spent a good week and a bit on there and doing, I guess it's classed as easy stuff, but for me it wasn't easy because I hadn't really done it before. So like even today I spent a bit of time just doing basic for loops, but I'd never built that muscle. So just learning how to create one and how to get it working. So I'm really glad that I found that website because you can also filter which style of question you want to improve on. So cool. Yeah, it's been a worthwhile phase of the learning, just going down the gym and just getting used to the weights, doing basic fundamental JavaScript.
Can you introduce the word puny to the non-British part of our community that may be listening? Because I have no idea what that means.
Good point. Puny would be, I guess, small and weak.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. which is kind of embarrassing to say because I was thinking about this earlier, how I've been able to build applications in React and deal with APIs, but struggled to write a basic for loop. Because I'd never really done it on my own. I didn't, I hadn't had to do it up until this stage. So
I suppose, yeah.
That muscle was very weak in terms of writing fundamental JavaScript without looking it up or without just copying and pasting and not really understanding what it does. Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah. I mean, also bearing in mind that these are, again, completely different tasks. Doing a tiny for loop with a specific objective in mind that you may not it may not be applicable elsewhere, like some maths problems that you wouldn't really do in proper programming, and a different thing to read through React documentation and put all these pieces together and figure out when does it do redraws and whatnot, right? Completely different problems. Although I understand the embarrassment, it happened to me many times as well when I check up some basics of coding and still just are completely behind with some of these things. So yeah, it's a familiar feeling, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ashamed. I think, because I always knew that muscle was a bit weak because obviously even when you're dealing with React, you've got fundamental bog standard basic JavaScript logic in there.
Yeah.
And even whilst I was doing the React stuff, I was able to get the app working, but didn't really understand a lot of that code. Or if someone took some resources away and say, right, figure out how to do this on your own, I'd be like, I have no idea where to even start. Whereas now I know some built-in methods and how to work some of the stuff. And just really feeling a bit more competent using the JavaScript. So I'm sure when I go back to React, I'll be able to think better when it comes to problem solving. How can I get this to do this and move this over there? And I've got tools now.
Well, wicked, man. Yeah, absolutely. You remember last time we spoke, we thought about setting a timer for you and say how much can you do in an hour, whatever. Did you manage to measure some of that?
Yeah, I've been measuring it every day pretty much.
Did you?
Working out
Well done.
How long I'd spent on doing edabit, how
Right.
many questions I did per time period. So even like this morning, I started off doing, for loops on very easy level and managed to do 2 in an hour. But then the next hour I did like 4, and the final hour I did like 8.
Right.
So I completed them all, but it just took me less time to do. So it was really cool advice that you gave me to track how well and how quickly you can do them to know when you can bop up to the next level.
True, yeah, exactly. Like if within the hour of whatever you set for yourself, you can complete all these exercises that you prepared for yourself, then okay, well, I'm at that level already, possibly even higher. Let's push it over. I was actually surprised because we haven't spoken for 2 weeks, and you went from very easy. I remember seeing on your Instagram, you went from very easy, right, to medium. So that's very easy, easy, and now medium, right? So that's 3 classes you went through. Well done, man. Good job.
Thank you, yeah. Thanks, mate. Yeah, because I guess it was a struggle and also very humbling to think that I kind of at least knew some stuff. So I think I came in at easy level and then thought, oh, hang on a minute, these aren't easy at all. Dropped back down to very easy. Managed to do a lot of those. But what's cool about that website is you can filter by tag in some of those questions. So some of them will have math, some of them will be loops, some of them will be regex.
Yeah.
So although I could have, like today I was thinking I could have gone up to the hard level and tried a few on there, but I knew that my loop level was probably still at very easy.
Cool.
So I'm glad I did drop down to just build the foundations up, really, because I could have gone onto hard and probably completed a few on hard, but still would have been crap at doing loops, which, although it does, it doesn't always come up. To me, I can see 4 loops, 4 in, 4 off, each, map, filter. These are all really common
fundamental, yes,
tools. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
I could Google it, yes, but it will take me a while to figure out what to Google, how to do it, and how to get it working. Whereas if I can go, okay, well, this is what I want it to do in my head, and convert that into the code, which is what I was doing today, I just feel a lot more capable.
No, perfect. Yeah, kind of like you were saying, there is a point in which you start looking at programming, from a slightly different perspective, where like you know a solution for almost everything, but these kind of skills, like knowing a bit more about particular structures like for loops or statements and how they really work, like the more sort of detail you know about them, the sort of more optimized and hypothetically better solutions you can come up with, right? So like becoming proficient with programming would be one, and then like pushing yourself to do things even better would be even the further step in that progress, right? So yeah, like you said, just making that muscle stronger is definitely a good investment here. And man, like honestly, I would really even encourage you just keep it on the back of your schedule every day. Do like half an hour of that for the next year or so, and that will just pump your essential skills. I would probably recommend it to myself even to like go there and just. I'm wondering, do they do Python? That'd be amazing if they did Python.
I think they do.
Right.
They do a couple of other languages, yeah.
I should probably go and do that. Yes. 1,500 plus challenges in Python. I'll probably start with very easy, but it'd be good to try.
It's all, I guess it depends on I guess it's the breadth of your knowledge, because, it depends on what tag the question's got. Like if you've never done regex, then you're going to struggle on it easy. But if a question on hard doesn't have regex in it, you can probably do it.
True. Yeah. So we were talking about going back to your previous assignment, the question generator, and trying to think of different ways we could introduce this random functionality there. Do you remember?
Yes.
Right. So my question is, one, out of top of your head, because the way you're doing it currently, you have these 2 arrays and you're pushing it from one array to another. And when one of the arrays is empty, you're just swapping the contents essentially, right? Remember, I was suggesting that we go back and try to fix that. So would you be okay if I like set that up as your like intermediate challenge, that you try to go back to that exercise and and give it a shot? Because I think it would be cool, especially now that you've trained so much more on these, like that's a very edabit type of question, I feel, like you have this one way of doing this particular task. Now you just have to optimize it in some way or another, right? And think whether you can use different structures, whether you're even approaching it from the right way or not.
Not trying to say that the one you did is wrong. You did it perfectly well, and it's working, right? It's just to kind of to push that muscle of can I at least attempt optimizing it in some way, and give that a shot.
Yep. Homework challenge accepted.
Cool beans. Right. Well, in this case, what do you want to talk about today?
Today, Voy, I would like to talk about the topic of, I guess, preparing to apply for jobs. And just wondering at what stage do I start thinking about it and applying, and what kind of things would I need to know to improve my chances of landing a junior position?
Good question. Very important question as somebody who's preparing to become a programmer.
Yeah, I guess when I did my reading months ago, the general consensus I got was you'll never be ready to apply for jobs. So just start applying, after you've done at least one or two projects. So in my head, because I'd done one or two projects, I was thinking now's maybe about the time. But I also know that you said I wasn't quite ready, which is absolutely fine. I don't disagree with it. I'm not in any ways expecting you to say, okay, Sam, by July the 28th, you should be ready. But I don't want that. I just want to get a rough idea for me what I need to do before I can start applying, if that makes sense.
These are all valid points. I can totally see why you're feeling like you should know that, like you should start thinking about it now. I don't think I would disagree, but I also wouldn't full-heartedly agree with sort of advice about start as soon as you can. Mm-hmm. Simply because, think about it, right? So my logic here is, although, if you can convince me otherwise, I'll change it. But I'm thinking you will send a CV now. Let's hypothesize. You send a CV now to company X. You get better over the next 2 months, and then you want to go like, hey, I'm actually better than what I shown you 2 months ago. Can you really change your position then? Can you say, oh, by the way, forget that previous CV, now is a new CV with that extra project? I kind of have a feeling that for each company within some time scale, within maybe 6 months, you probably only get about one shot at grabbing their attention. And they'll pick your CV, probably just put it on a pile, and that CV is just going to stand there. I don't think in many cases, in some cases you could, but in many cases you will not have the opportunity to get them to swap your CVs and say, okay, this is the more up-to-date one, right? So the reason why my logic goes towards, well, let's make sure we at least have all the things checked, is that no opportunity goes by only because we applied prematurely and then we had no opportunity to swap your CVs later on. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. But then how would you see that in relation to that advice that, start, you're never ready, start as soon as you can to get used to it, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. I guess, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of had it in my head that like junior positions are hired more on potential, which means that they don't have to know everything. So it's almost like the sooner I apply, the sooner I could potentially get employed for my potential and then continue my learning, doing the stuff that the company wants me to learn rather than my default learning path, if that makes sense. So it's almost like they pick me off the learning treadmill and stick me on their learning treadmill.
Right.
And I figured the sooner I do that, that's just more efficient because then I'm getting paid to learn the stuff that's
so that
job.
That is true, right? So the only thing we have to think about is, that while this is true and it applies, there is a point between you knowing zero programming and you knowing 100% of programming. Let's assume there's a point somewhere there before which they're just not going to hire you even as a potential, right? Like if you know zero, they're not going to hire a random person who knows no programming and go like, oh, we're going to train them to program. Like that's not going to happen. So you progress along this curve and along this path, and you learn more and more and more. And there'll be a moment by which they say, okay, from then on, these kind of people are within our threshold to say, well, they don't know everything, but we can bring them up, but they already have those fundamentals to invest in the potential, like you say. And we're just kind of asking ourselves the question, sort of, where is that line, more or less, at least? Like, what's the blurry kind of threshold that we could be looking at?
The range.
Correct, and whether we're in there already. Because I feel that in some cases you definitely are there. Like I can definitely see that you get some things that would be on that checklist that you've got ticked, which is brilliant. And you pushing with things like edabit is another like great way to move yourself into that space. So it's great. Simply what I'm thinking about is whether there are other things that we just haven't observed yet that might also be on that list that will prevent you from even being accepted to that sort of, investment into, potential junior developer, which is why I thought it would be a good idea to just kind of scan through as many things as we can, right? And figure out, is there anything out there that we still don't know? To me, kind of feels like it would be really good to show a personal website. Like that's one of the sort of sign-off projects that's just easiest. Also because it serves two purposes. Like it's an online CV, just, hands down, it's the easiest way to showcase your work.
Yeah.
You don't have to invite anybody to download any portfolios, any CVs. You just link them up and they can just go there, scroll down. If they like it, they maybe contact you. But at least there is that, and if you state, clearly that you've built all of it, it's also a great showcase of your skills. So I feel that, out of the top of my head, I can at least think that building that, personal website will be, step one to reaching that state of this is where you need to be to even start applying. And then I question myself also thinking, are there any other places, we could be looking at, and just list them down and get out of the way and you're done. So it will probably be depending on, how many of these we find, essentially. Because I feel that building a website will be relatively static amount of time. Like it's a fixed amount that would be looking into invest. And we could probably argue it'd be good if you spend maybe about a month trying to build it, considering, you spent maybe about 2-3 weeks on each of the assignments you did. I think to polish that final website would be a good idea, right? And then on top of that, we need to add whatever kind of fundamentals we may be missing here. And it could be as simple as maybe you're feeling less familiar with operating on booleans, for instance, right? Or you feel less familiar with the debugger, right? It doesn't have to be core programming; it could be just kind of peripheral sort of tools, right? So just kind of like for us to think about these things and maybe look through things that you did so far and think about what is indeed missing. Maybe you even telling me where you feel more confident, less confident. That way, maybe we could at least get some idea. And actually, for me, the easiest way to notice these is to do these exercises with you and then go through them with you as well. When, for instance, I suggest, hey, could you change that? I don't know. Let's say we were changing the ternary operators into like if statements in JavaScript, and whether you're capable of doing something like that. Like that gives me a good idea of okay. Where are these weak points? Or, what do you think is wrong with this alert clause? Like we're alerting people here. Why is this incorrect? And there I can tell, you're either lacking maybe in terms of understanding that an alert should be more bespoke and about the particular issue that is describing, or maybe that we're catching too many things, like, an error somewhere else in your code would have caused that same catch, which wasn't, describing what it was really catching. So when we went through these exercises, I could get a very clear indication of where things were not quite up to the challenge, right? And undoubtedly there was always going to be something that we won't catch, and that's fine as well. We just want to just push as far as we can, detect that it's worth pushing, and truth is, the moment you start applying, you probably still want to carry on learning, right? You probably still want to pick another project, right? And push ahead after that. But at least to have some list, something, if you have something to go through, well, at least you're pushing ahead, and these are important things.
Yeah, that sounds cool. And like I just want to iterate for the purpose of the video that I don't expect like a tick list of these are the 7 things that you need to complete before you. Like I know that. But yeah, that's kind of cool because I guess, I knew I'd have to do a portfolio site, so something that houses the projects. So that was always on my list anyway. So that'd be quite cool to at least start with that. And a couple of both those projects could do with a few tweaks, and like we've talked about as well, just getting used to the Git and the branches and pull requests. Correct. Is one of those peripheral things I could do with a bit more practice on. So
to be fair with you, that thing in particular, you're doing a great job on, Git and branching and all that, like I feel so far you've been doing really good progress on that, and that probably is one of those things you could already tick off. I'd feel maybe do one pull request just to complete the loop, but it's kind of that.
Cool. Yeah, no, all valid points. Yeah, I need to.
That.
I mean, I guess it's a bit later on down the line in terms of getting stuff ready to apply for jobs and then deciding where to go. That's like step 2, but it's still worth considering now, because I guess it depends on where I apply and where. So I'm starting to get a few, I guess, offers through LinkedIn as well, albeit they're, probably a bit higher than where I am, maybe mid to senior.
Right.
And they're just picking it up because my LinkedIn's quite well, stuffed with keywords. But a lot of those are generated based on where my LinkedIn profile says I'm based.
Right.
Which isn't a bad thing, but it just means I'll have to think about where I want that LinkedIn to like stamp my flag and say, right, this is where I want a job.
Good
so
point.
The recruiters on that, it's only the recruiters that are looking around that region that get in touch.
Yeah, that's true. I'm getting tons of invites from London myself still, because I just haven't changed it since I've been living there. So I know what you mean. Yeah. I would probably encourage you to give it a shot in the UK, especially like I say in these regions I mentioned. If you'd have any like solid preference really against it, then I'd understand it too. It may be also a good idea to just do both. LinkedIn, keep it in one place, but maybe send application here and there. See kind of what works out.
Yeah, it's a good point actually. Yeah, I guess taking the pandemic into account, it would make more sense to stay within my own borders for now. And that gives me like you say, a higher starting point on the ladder.
Yeah. Although I do,
which if I look at my goal in the long term, I'd be happy to do that.
Cool. Okay. Well, I mean, so I feel like when the day comes, we'll just go over that again, that logic, and just pick whatever they'll be. Like, just cool. Looking far ahead now, I feel like probably there'll be a number of days just putting together a massive Excel of links of like, emails, and then a couple of days of just sending as much as you can out. I suppose it may not be hurtful to maybe do a job on Upwork, try to look through like angel.co and try to pick up some like tiny contracts there, like, freelancing jobs if you can. Okay. Some dude, just needing a website for their grocery store or their florist or, their online, handmade watches, whatever it may be, right? So these jobs are normally underpaid for skills, but generally web developers rarely get down to doing these kind of jobs because these people wouldn't offer as much as they should be paying for these. So it's a relatively good opportunity for juniors to kind of jump on these and build some of these websites, right? Normally, if a company already wants like a professionally made big website, they just go to a dedicated studio that builds websites, and they do much higher delivery kind of quality. But for many, it's just not viable. So they just go on things like Upwork and pay, I don't know, a couple of $100 for a job. And you lose. You essentially will lose. But it's a great opportunity to at least get yourself a bit of feedback and have another thing in a portfolio. And already having these kind of jobs is a good step forward as well, I feel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool.
Cool.
So just a bit of clarification. When you say personal website, do you mean a portfolio site or a website, a personal website that houses the portfolio? No. Yeah. Because basically at the moment, I've still got my personal website is my coaching stuff.
Right.
So my portfolio site will have to be a separate entity or a subdivision of.
Probably a separate one, because your personal one is building like WordPress, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to show that you can build a website. That's the whole purpose here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more about the fact I built this than actually look at the content. Funny enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that they can see, he knows how to use these elements of HTML. It's styled in a particular way. They can like look at it on their phones and understand you know what's reactive, responsive design and all that. Yeah, that's the kind of principle here. You're just kind of doing a little showcase of building it from scratch. It's a good idea. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, if you want, you don't necessarily have to go into like a lot of details by yourself in there. Like the content itself can be secondary. Obviously, it's the place where you say what you do. You know, I'm a React developer. I built this and this and this and that. Here you can see some examples of my work, and you also say I also built this website, right? But the key is about like just using these skills in the project.
Showcase, that's the word you use, isn't it?
Showcase, that's right.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I've done a lot of reading already on what kind of things to put in the portfolio site. How, you know, I'm ready to go on that. So I've got all my reading. I know what I'd like to have in it, and
Cool.
so I'm pretty much ready to go on that.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
that could be essentially, you know, our next assignment.
Yeah.
I'm kind of trying to think what we could look at right now to be able to start making up that list of, you know, what are we missing essentially. We could simply talk about this right now. I could just start questioning you about these things, I feel, but we could also maybe look at some of the projects you did already. We could look maybe at some edabit exercises you did. Would that make any sense to you? Do you have like a history of the ones that you did? Can you like browse through them?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, that could also be helpful. Do you know which ones you couldn't do? Do you have like a track record of the ones that you kind of gave up on?
No, this is a feature request I was going to send to them. When you give up and ask for the solution, it still just marks it as complete.
Right.
So I can't actually remember which ones I struggled with. But the ones that I did sort of give up on, I think I was close to it, and it was just a little tiny detail.
Okay. Right.
So
yeah, that's often the case, isn't it? Right. So I mean, maybe just talking about it first.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, if you were to mark yourself, right? What would be your own evaluation of what's your strengths and what's your weaknesses? Your quarterly review. There we go. And you have to mark your strengths and weaknesses.
Okay. I think a couple of weeks ago, I would have said my basic JavaScript speaking, as I keep calling it, my speaking ability was my weakest point, but that's definitely gone up the last couple of weeks. My basic React knowledge is pretty good, like understanding components and props and state. You know, on a very basic level, I can, you know, build, you know, a couple of components. One thing I made a note earlier that I could probably do a bit of brushing up on would be React, where it's got multiple components, like passing props and state up sort of 2, 3, 4 levels rather than just one. Okay. Just to get used to that. Things like map, reduce, filter, and sort of those intermediate level things I could do with a bit more work on. I mean, I could always Google this stuff and copy and paste it, but I'd like to be able to fully understand it so I can... Well, it's like, you know, when people say they pick electronic equipment apart so they can see how it works, and then they put it back together again. I kind of want to do that with map, filter, reduce, and things like that. Right. Yeah, debugger could do with a bit more experience on.
Okay, so I just thought about one thing. Do you have? Do you want to like start writing these down so we could actually keep track? Yeah. So one thing I remember that we thought about giving you to do that I don't think we ever did was communicating with an API to store data, not only to retrieve data, but to store a state. Because I know that you've been using, I think, like a client-side database to store data between sessions, I believe, right, on a browser. You did an Instagram story about it, or like an entry a while ago. So like, you know, how do you persist a state in between refreshes, right? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do recall, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, the question now that we'd be wanting to look at is how do you store data more permanently somewhere? And that brought me to thinking that you probably haven't worked with a database before. Is that right?
Nope.
Yeah, cool. So
it's on my list to do.
Right, see, like that, as a front-end developer, like you probably wouldn't ever build database code and have to communicate with it directly yourself. So I'm kind of in between thinking that, because you will rarely get to build something like that, it may not be essential. But at the same time, I'm thinking when you know how databases work, more or less, at least you get a bit of it, you get better as a front-end developer because you understand what's actually happening when that data leaves your client, goes somewhere else, and then what happens when you fetch it back? Where does it actually come from? Why is it structured in a particular way, right?
Yeah.
And you probably know that there are SQL and non-SQL databases, right? SQL and non-SQL, no SQL. So I personally, for instance, myself, I'm a big fan of NoSQL and NoSQL databases such as MongoDB. Maybe you heard of that?
MongoDB, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And I feel they're generally simpler to be introduced to. So maybe doing like a quick exercise of you working, not necessarily with Mongo, but with they're called non-relational database. I hope I'm not lying to you, but
I think you are, yeah.
Yeah, because the other ones are relational.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially. And here I'm remembering also that we were thinking about making you use Firebase. And I think Firebase is such a great asset to have on your list. Like, it may be that in a job you land, you'll never use these type of skills, but I kind of have a feeling that having at least a little play with it and incorporating Firebase into some of your app just will expose you to such a vast amount of things that you could be doing in the end for a company, because you have to deal, or you can deal, you don't have to, but you can deal with authentication on using Firebase. You can be dealing with storage, like, uploading a photo and then storing it somewhere on the server. You can be dealing with indeed database. So you're storing data on the database, and that persists between sessions, between computers. You can look at the same data on your mobile phone, etc., right, on an app. And actually many more. There's, Firebase has grown, substantially recently. And furthermore, it's a very well-written API documentation, and that'll give you just another boost at reading API docs. So we'll pick, these three things that you'll get better at, plus reading the doc. Which frankly, I don't think these are, again, fundamentals that a junior web developer has to have to enter the world. But at the same time, they will expose you to a really significant portion of what web development can be about, which is authentication. Like, it's very common that you have to authenticate your user. Like, some apps you're going to be building, you will never have to deal with it, but vast majority, I'm going to take that back. A lot of them you will. Maybe not a majority, but a lot of them you really will. So understanding what's the whole idea of of authentication, how does it work, learning about certain terminology, that'll be one. Then two, storing actual data in the database. Again, we thought about it before, like it just slipped into my head now, but I feel that it's good how to use fetch, but to use this third-party API to push that data out from your client, store it on a database, and then be able to retrieve it. And these are going to be completely stupid and simple examples just to train that little muscle. So I wouldn't even think that we'd have to turn it into like another fully fleshed sort of exercise in terms of like making it useful. Like we did the weather app and it kind of served the purpose. We did the coaching questions and they served the purpose. Here I would only literally just have you read the docs and implement in the crudest form as you can, and just gain that skill, gain that extra bit of power reading through the docs. So I thought that probably would be a good idea to go through as well.
Yeah, cool. Sounds cool. Yeah.
Sorry, I did completely interrupt you, and I went about 10 minutes talking about something else than you were, and you were giving a pretty good summary of what you think your good skills, so your good sides and bad sides are at the moment. So you did say that you feel confident about React. You feel a little bit less. You were feeling a little bit less confident about speaking JavaScript. You were pushing ahead with that, so that's great, right? Yeah. And then you mentioned that maybe debugger is something you're not completely confident with.
Yeah, only just through lack of experience. I mean, that was obviously what part of the thing I was meant to do on my second project, but didn't do it because it kept crashing on me for no other reason. Right. So having a bit of practice with debugger on whatever I build next would be quite useful.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what else, because obviously within JavaScript as a whole, there's quite a few areas I could brush up on, but whether it's worth spending the time on such small finicky things, which I can still Google and get working. It's probably less.
I would even say that. Yeah, you mentioned map, reduce, kind of all these things. You did a bit of it. You got a bit of experience with it. And then it's probably going to be one of these things you'll forget, Google, copy paste, adjust, and it will work. It's good to get the concept of it, but the exact wording and be like, professional about it, I don't think is necessary at this stage. So if you see more of these little things that you know more or less how they work, but you don't exactly remember the syntax, I don't know, index off or whatever else, right? Then you probably, it's probably a good idea to like just have a list where you just dump these sort of little things that you could brush up on. Even just so you do your half an hour of edabit every morning and you maybe pick from that list, for instance. But I don't think these would be those core big fundamentals you need to work. As soon as you do something, I think once or twice, you get at least the idea what it does, and you can probably leave it at I just get the idea when it comes to these.
That's a good point.
Things.
Yeah, because there's a part of me that wants to break it apart and understand it all, but it's probably not an efficient use of time.
I mean,
every time.
Yes, and I would even say it's impossible. Like you will not get every single bit. You just won't. Like the languages, the frameworks that are just too big, right? And with time you get just better and better at it. Like you just push ahead. But it almost feels like with the progress of standards, like the finish line just moves with you. So you just get better. Things change. You have to readapt. So
good point. Yeah, I mean it's definitely something I'm learning because we laugh now about how long I took on promises only because I wanted to understand how they worked internally, and I still don't know. But I still know. I now know how to use them.
Cool.
And I kind of always did know how to use them. I just wanted to know why they worked.
Fair enough.
But I'm starting to let that go now. It's like if I get it, great. If not, doesn't matter. I can get it working.
Yeah, that's probably a lot of employers, if they ever heard you say that, they would kick you off. But that's pretty much the correct approach. Because no one wants to hire someone who goes like, I just make it work and fuck off. But the truth is, that's kind of what it is, essentially.
Yeah, they don't care whether you know. Can you deliver on what I've asked you to do?
I mean, we're talking about building just the general web. We're not talking about building software that runs airplanes and spaceships, right? There, it's completely different. Or like when you work in a banking system and all that, it's different. But if you're just changing a model to be wider a little bit, or like to adapt to a list that it expands and shrinks on. If you just get it working and it works well, like it doesn't bug, it's fine. If you don't get exactly every tiny detail of how this worked. Yeah,
that's cool.
Okay, so if you want to carry on, if anything else comes to your head.
I guess the finer intricacies of branch management on Git.
Cool.
Like if I'm honest, in one of my projects, I think I said I'm in a bit of a pickle. Like I've done something and I don't know how to roll back.
Yeah.
And getting used to deploy. I guess it's deployment and having those two branches separate. The build and the dev, and keep building on this one and then pull request into that and keep doing that. And so I could do with a bit more practice on that. So I guess dev and prod. Merging and
just branches, maintaining them separately, right? Like the lifespan of them and how they interact with each other.
Because I get a bit on edge. I don't like not knowing what I'm doing and like worrying I'm going to delete something, and working with branches is going to be quite a large part of daily dev work. So being comfortable with it.
I feel like you will reach a point when you will be comfortable, and then you'll realize it's like it's brainless. Like you never even stop to think about it. Like it is quite simple. It's easy to screw it up if you do one thing maybe not quite right, and that gets you into this, like you said, pickle when you think, like which way do I even unroll from here? But once you're familiar with the process, it can be hard to actually screw it up. Like it's pretty well built system.
Yeah.
Only thing that I'm going to repeat is like never ever run it on your like low battery on your laptop or on your PC and like unplug it or whatever else. Like don't ever stop the process in the middle because that will just screw everything up. And it happened to me a few times. You learn the hard way, but one thing worth keeping in mind, if there's one thing that's easy to screw it up, is just to stop the process halfway through. That just fucks it up.
No,
big
good
time.
Point.
Yeah,
I have that written down somewhere.
Yeah, because I remember mentioning that a long time ago. But I'll just grind it in, like never ever stop it halfway through. Cool. Okay, so Git, yeah, that'll be definitely good
Yeah.
to get into more, definitely.
Trying to think what was on my initial list. I mean, if we're just looking at sort of JavaScript and a framework, I know a lot of the stuff. Whether I can speak a lot of the stuff is another thing, but whether I would need to speak it at this stage and how relevant it is,
Right.
probably not that big a deal.
What do you think about your just core HTML and CSS?
Yeah, I would say pretty good. Thinking about it, forms and form input and validation.
Okay.
Could possibly do with some work.
Okay, right.
And thinking about it, like non-React DOM manipulation.
Okay, so this is something I think we mentioned last time, that it's okay to just know a little bit of it, but not that much about it. As long as you don't use jQuery, you're generally okay, I'd say.
Yeah.
But maybe it's worth at least keeping on a list and keeping it in mind. How you feel about things like lists? You done any lists in HTML, like TD, TR, UL, elements?
Yeah, tables.
Tables would be different. Okay, did you do tables?
Yeah, well, yeah, because it isn't TD. That's table.
You could be
That's
completely
table
right.
data. Yeah.
Sorry,
it
was
ULs and LIs. Yeah, pretty good at that. Or at least on the super basic stuff. CSS probably do with a bit of a brush up on centering things, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. But I can do it. Just takes me a long while to, but that's just practice.
Have you used less or SCSS in the end?
Yeah, Sass.
Sass you did, right?
Yeah.
Right. Marina's trying to be funny. Can you bring me a glass of water, please?
Sure. Say hi.
Actually, and a yogurt would be great as well. Marina says hi.
No,
Hola,
I'm
Marina.
excited myself. Hi. Hello, Sam. I miss you.
Do you hear that? Hello,
I miss you too.
Hello,
man.
Sam. I miss you. Oh, he misses you too.
Te extraño.
No.
No?
Te echo de menos. He said te extraño. Is that I miss you?
Yeah, it's the same.
What?
Well,
You're right. I'm wrong.
No, it's true. But
Te
te
extraño?
extraño is more like in South America, maybe.
Sí.
Although in Catalan you said te estimo. Ah, no, that's I love you. Oh, okay. I miss. No, pero te extraño, like it means I miss you.
But in South America.
Mainly there, but
Yeah,
if you
that's
say it
how
in
I know
Spain, you people will get it.
But it makes sense that I've never heard it in Spain. Not even
Yeah,
once.
it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I feel excused.
Okay, and it makes sense
Well
that I
done.
know it.
And it makes sense you
didn't
didn't
know
know
the phrase
it.
that you knew.
You lived in Colombia, didn't you?
Yeah, and Ecuador, yeah. So that's
I almost forgot
standard.
about that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So cool. You said you used Sass. That's right.
Yeah,
Cool.
Use Sass. That was a while ago, so probably could potentially do with a brush up on it.
Yeah. So we definitely want to focus on getting you familiar with it, at least to like a basic extent that you can like declare a variable in Sass and. When I look at the list, I'll probably flesh out some of these points with like maybe some key subtopics you could be looking at to make sure you at least did at least once, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
I feel like anything you'll be building now, I'd encourage you to write it in Sass. I'd probably even say, let's do it. Let's just switch over completely to Sass. It's not necessary that you will only be building with Sass, and maybe I should probably like look up and see, what is the current state of the art, and like, do people still recommend it, using it as much as they did a couple of years ago when I was doing web. But back then it was essentially like you'd never write CSS, like never.
Yeah.
So it's good to know basic CSS, and I know it like keeps on getting better and more updated. But back then, still things were primarily either Sass or less, and out of the two, things seem to have been shifting towards Sass, and I've used both quite a lot, and I can probably stand behind it. I think Sass that seems to have more benefits.
Well, I think I think I've got nothing to lose really, because I think my CSS knowledge is pretty good. My application is probably just a little below, but only because I rarely build stuff in it. But I know most of the major things in CSS, so
Wicked.
why not just use Sass, because it just means then I can write it quicker.
Yeah, and frankly, it's a minor change. It's a very minor change. You're not giving up. You're not needing to learn new stuff that much. It's very minor.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
and I know what it's based on. It's not as if I learn Sass but have no knowledge of CSS.
Correct. So that actually brings me to understanding build. Do you know what I mean by this? We kind of briefly spoke about that last time when I tried to give you an idea of the distinction between, a production build and a development build, where actually doing a build was a slightly different thing. I remember you used to refer to a build branch and like your development branch, which is where I try to kind of step back and go back to the production and development terminology, given that you build in both cases. You probably would be building in both cases. So just the word build and like that terminology, does that feel familiar, or you're probably
no, it does, but I think I'm still getting them a bit muddled.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
As far as I can see, like build is basically when you're uglifying a lot of the files. So it's like taking the JavaScript and the CSS and basically bundling it, usually via Webpack, making it, I want to say static, or like there's a little folder where everything's in there ready to rock, and that's then what you use for deployment and hosting.
Wicked. Yeah. So yes, you're right. It doesn't only include uglifying and minifying. It can be many other things, but at its core, that's one of the two things that you'll be doing a lot. For instance, one of the first steps in your build would be turning Sass to CSS. That kind of would form part of your build, and that would be happening on both your dev branch and on your production branch. Whenever you want to see a result, you need to convert your CSS to your CSS to your CSS, and therefore that will be one of the first steps of your build. And then if you need to do a production build, then you also minify and uglify your code, etc. So understanding like what build, kind of what function does it have in the life cycle, and maybe building like a very simple build yourself. I don't know if you used or heard of Grunt or Gulp.
Babel is
cool.
Right. The one that I think is built into React, if I remember rightly.
Is it Bubble as B-A-B-B-L-E?
B-A-B-E-L.
Fair enough.
B-A-B-E-L. I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I know of it. I just never used it. We use completely different build systems. I just want to quickly...
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. Because if you do npm run build in React, it uses Webpack and Babel. I'm not sure the intricacies of what each one of those does.
Oh, so in fact, I think this one in particular is used to turn the ECMAScript 2015 and ahead into backwards compatible versions of JavaScript, so that the current and all the older browsers can work with it. I'm literally just reading it from their website, which is fantastic. It's good to know it, and indeed, it seems like React is using it because it comes up on their first page. So good. So essentially, that probably would be also part of building. Yeah, you're turning your JavaScript, your modern JavaScript, into an old JavaScript. You generally pre-process your code in some way or another, right? Whilst Grunt and Gulp, they're called worker frameworks or worker libraries. I think that's. Let me just double check the terminology exactly so I don't lie to you. Gulp. Let's see, what's their definition? A toolkit to automate and enhance your workflow. Yeah, they used to call them something like workers or Grunt.
Yeah.
Task runner. Okay, that's another way to put it. Yeah. So essentially, it's not so much that it's Grunt or Gulp are like down to a specific task. Like for instance, Babel sounds, at least from their description, like okay, the main task that we want to execute is to make that JavaScript work in older versions, right? Whilst Gulp and Grunt, they are frameworks that allow you to just define any type of task and execute them in a particular order, and maybe pipe result of one task into the next task, into the next task, into the next task, and then the end of it, like spit out a file, maybe, right? Or save a file somewhere. So you just build these. It's a framework for building these kind of consecutive steps of some sort of a build process, essentially. Like you can do other things than building websites with it, but it's very commonly used, I feel, in websites. There is also other sort of built frameworks, libraries, methodologies, and even further from there, you have things like WebAssembly. I don't know if you heard of WebAssembly, which is even a bit more complicated in that term. And many more things that I'm not even aware that have been introduced over the last years that probably now are considered standard. But at least getting like a fundamental understanding of how to create a build system yourself, I feel would be great. So it probably is one of the most peripheral things we'll have on this list.
Yeah.
But I kind of have a strong feeling you may get some extra points for that alone, for understanding how it works. Because any web development company will have some build system, and if you're at least familiar with it enough to be able to, to give it a shot, then sure, let's try it.
Yeah. Sounds cool.
Right. One more thing that came to my mind just now, and that is in fact a little bit more difficult and complex, but maybe worth doing, is Docker. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, it's got a whale. Something to do with a whale.
It's got a whale, yeah. I'm going to dig into our yogurt, if you don't mind me.
Just go for it, mate.
Quick dinner. Yeah, so
have a look at it.
That I'm still doubting myself. I'm not sure if it would be a good idea for you to look into or not, but probably majority of companies these days would be shifting towards some sort of containerization for sake of uniform development. Essentially, you want to ensure that the development environment that you're developing in would be as similar as possible to how everybody else in your company is developing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, on a zoomed out level, yeah.
Right. So imagine that you're working on a Mac, right?
Yeah.
I'm working on a Windows. Right? You could have completely different processor, graphics card, amount of RAM, hard drive, display screen, webcam, bunch of different things, right? You could have different apps installed. You could have a different, version of Python installed, right? If you send me your code, it's highly unlikely it will run out of box on my system because I will not have the same packages, same things installed, same hardware, etc., etc. So containerization is a way to abstract, out some of these things, and they will be handled by Docker in this case. I know I'm describing it as a black box, and I shouldn't because it isn't. It's actually quite well described how it works, but as an overview, it generally unifies how our development environments are going to look, and that will that can aid essentially development and if you're interested, you can one day maybe read about how it used to be before Docker, and things were a lot more difficult. So I'm considering enough to put that at least on the list as an optional, whether we could look at brushing up on some basics of Docker, and as simple as you putting up a container that you download from the internet, and that's kind of it, right? It's not difficult, but again, it's one of these things that I mentioned before. Do it once, say you've got experience with it. You're not going to be building these files. You're not going to be like setting it up for other people probably as a junior, but at least to be able to say, have you ever used Docker? And you just go, yes, that's enough. Because once you join the company, somebody will most likely help you set it up anyway. It's just so that you can answer, yes, I have. Simple as that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, mate. Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of me running dry at this point about what else we could
that's
add
cool.
into
One thing that I did think of a minute ago, which obviously isn't going to be bad, but I do know it, is Redux, like state management in React. So that's like next level React stuff. Thoughts on whether to dabble in that at this stage, have it as a peripheral cherry on the top, or...
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's no right or wrong answer with this, so...
Yeah, I remember reading about it a while back. Obviously, without having ever used React, I didn't get to use that much, but let's see if we can.
I don't think it will harm me at least doing some reading up on it again, just maybe using it once, because I think it's basically from what I remember is like if you've got a React app and it's got a shed load of components, Redux just basically helps manage all of those individual states. Whereas if you're doing a to-do list, you've only got like 5 components. You don't really need Redux, but I see it in a lot of job applications, knowledge of React, and Redux is usually mentioned right after.
Yes.
So even if I just, like you say, if have you ever used Redux, Sam? I can say yes, even if it was only for 30 minutes. At least I know what it does, and I have experience with it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not going to build an app where I'm going to need it, but there's no on me spending, even if it's 20 minutes, just watching a video on it.
That's actually a very good point. You mentioning that. Yeah, there's a website on which they describe the motivation behind Redux. I'm gonna send it to you. So you can that probably will answer our question of actually maybe I'll just send it over. That's probably going to answer our question of what it does, why is it there, and give us a better understanding of whether you should look into doing it. I'm thinking if it's on a lot of job application, then definitely yes. Definitely you should do it. But if that's the case, then I would say you should probably do more than just half an hour. Like you should probably spend at least a few days getting used to it.
Yeah, because thinking about it, I guess it'll also depend on whether I'm looking for junior JavaScript developer or junior React developer.
Junior React, I would say 100%. I mean, if you're offered an, you should probably apply to both, but you shouldn't just limit yourself to JavaScript, since React is your chosen library. It is possible for you to now swap to another one if they invite you to work in Angular. You'll spend some time learning it, obviously, but you'll eventually get there, and after a few months you'll be familiar with it as much as you are right now with React. So that's fine, but I think you should be confident enough to just go ahead and apply to React applications as well.
Yeah, cool.
Managing state of your data is left up to you, but then there are all these states in React. What I'm curious is Redux still relevant 2020? Let's see what they say about that, because reasons to use Redux still. Let's see what Reddit has to say about that. Because I'm 100% sure that what you say is true. Not long ago, it was essentially a key thing, and every job would read React Redux. So so it seems to be solving a different problem than what states of React are. So that's just me not understanding the subject well enough. Fair enough. Cool. Yeah. So well done. Yeah. Great thing on that list. That's for sure. Anything else along these lines? Because that was a very good insight, actually.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back, because what I've also been doing in the meantime is I've been looking at multiple job listings on LinkedIn and looking at keywords, and sometimes they have almost like a hit list, and it says your profile has 6 out of 10 of these keywords. So I've been deliberately looking at those keywords, deliberately stuffing them in my profile. Nice. If I'm at least know a bit about them.
Clever, right?
I'm just trying to think which other ones were missing from that list. I mean, I can have a quick look.
Yeah, go for it.
But I think other than learning a new framework or things that are super peripheral and quite position specific, I think I've got a lot of them on there, except for Redux. Let me have a quick look. Yeah, because from day one, I've had a document called Projects, Portfolio and Job, where I've just been collecting all the data on
Decent.
what kind of projects to build, how to build a portfolio site, what kind of things to have on it, what to put on your resume, yada, yada, yada. LinkedIn skills. REST API. I haven't got that on my LinkedIn. How does that? Yeah, REST API, NPM and terminal. Then you're going into things like, it's more sort of back-end stuff. Unit testing, test-driven development,
Okay.
Agile stuff.
That's for junior, or that is just in general?
These are more general. I mean, I just made a
Right.
comprehensive list because it then also gives me a kind of hit list of things to potentially learn as I progress. This is what companies are looking for.
Right.
So I mean, and CI/CD, which I've sort of had a super quick look at. But I guess. REST and REST API, the sort of ones that I'm looking at this list, which I could do with a brush up on.
Okay. Yeah, REST.
So that means then I can put it on my LinkedIn.
Okay.
I mean, I could put it on there now, but I'd be lying.
Do it. I'm thinking, right, so some of these sound like, for instance, tests, unit tests, test-driven development. You heard of it, I bet. You will have people that will tell you that you're not a programmer if you don't do them, that it's really key. And I partially would maybe agree with it. But whether it's a junior requirement, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. I've seen so many companies working without tests, big ones, small ones. It's okay. It's a valid business model to ignore tests. I feel that people who are like hardcore fans of tests, they go with the general consensus that if you don't do it now, it will pay back later and just screw you up big time. Whilst I feel what's easy to miss is that the time invested into putting together tests is kind of, and that time invested into just developing whatever you're building and getting those few extra features in or whatever else that you're going to be building may in some cases be a more viable business decision, even though later things are going to be burning because you didn't make tests. Yeah. And I won't try to argue, which way is good or not, but I just feel like these kind of decisions are a little bit further down the line.
Yeah.
So maybe I would probably, I probably would skip that.
Because I'm thinking like this list that I'm creating now, they're all going to be useful. I mean, everything's going to be useful, but it's being able to prioritize this list.
Correct.
Out of this list, which is going to be the main thing.
Yeah,
so I think
absolutely.
What we can do, or at least what I could maybe do, is just run through that list and just order them to some degree.
I mean,
because they're all going to help, but some of them more so
definitely.
than others.
No, definitely. I would even say we finish this call, we do it together, and at the end of it, and try to get from there. Right. So the first thing you mentioned, REST API. I'm going to think about it because I feel like not all APIs are REST, and whether knowing REST APIs, whether that's key and and crucial, maybe not. So it feels almost like one of these things. Oh, have you done it? Yes. Okay. Goodbye.
Yeah.
So you can get really good at it, but if you're whatever you're building, whatever the company you're working for is building things without REST API interaction, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're okay.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that list that I've collated is over hundreds of job adverts.
Cool.
And obviously, not everyone will have Every job probably has about 3 to 6 from that list of about 50.
Fair play. Yeah.
So I just literally just collated all of them.
Cool. So
yeah.
next thing was npm and terminal. So you used npm, I guess, to install some stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
once,
Well, I
twice?
guess I'm using npm in React. Yeah.
Right. But have you installed some modules?
Yeah.
You have, yeah. So okay, well again,
Yeah.
you've done it. There isn't really
Yeah.
that much more. You can log in to like an npm account if you have like a private repository,
Yeah.
but it's like you've done some Git, you know how to log into your Git account. It's pretty much the same with different keywords. So I think you'd be okay. Terminal itself, I mean, I suppose you use terminal, bit in your journey.
Yeah. But again, that might have just been on one listing out of 200.
No, so this will not be on many lists, but this will be in what you probably should know in every job, knowing how to use terminal to some extent.
Yeah.
But then again, the level to which you know it is arguable. Like you should definitely be able to know how to navigate around your file system using it. Things like creating a folder, creating a file, these are like core basics. And maybe on top of that, we could add like a couple of like cool little things that are just useful to know. I don't know, like how to kill a process that could come in handy in some cases. But again, when I think about it, really, would a junior need to know how to do these kind of things? Maybe, but
I mean, if that's a 5-minute job, then I'll have a read and a learn and a fiddle.
yeah, maybe, yeah. Okay,
Because again, if they say, have you used terminal before, I can say yes, I have.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Right, so you did some Git with terminal, haven't you? You did command line Git, so there you at least got some practice. You told me you did, that you didn't use a visual, but you used a...
Yeah, I didn't use GitHub Desktop, no. I deliberately stayed in the terminal to use it.
That's fine. Some experience right there. Okay, what else was on that list that you were reading?
Nothing major that jumped out.
Okay.
I mean, you've got CSS, JSON, Git, API, jQuery maybe.
No. You're fine.
OOP, TypeScript, Vue, Redux, listed databases, AWS Lambda, backend, Babel, Axios, WordPress.
Fair enough. These are good points to be thinking about. Like, there are a few things that kind of made me go, maybe. I think all of them probably not. Some of them were a good maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I say, CI/CD, design patterns, Jira, Scrum, mobile applications, SEO. A lot of it's either peripheral or a whole new language or framework.
Yeah, so these you can definitely get rid of. Like if it says Vue or Angular or Java, like forget about these.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like Scrum, Gantt charts, working with stuff like that, I know you know some Agile already, right? Like the terminology and like the methodology there. So essentially, I don't know if he told you this already. I think I have, but the man that invented Agile, he said he was doing consulting for different companies that were implementing it, and he said that in not a single company he went to, people implemented Agile correctly. Everybody does it wrong, just a little bit. But it's like you're trying to get there, you're trying to do it properly, but you'll see like a lot of people do a little bit of Agile, but then some places they skip on it and it has its consequences. And it's also not probably there's a lot of other methodologies right now as well. So it's not like a Bible. But since you already know about it, at least a bit, you've got that.
Yeah, I've dabbled.
Yeah, fair play. Right. You know what? So maybe send me that list that you've just been reading. I'll have a look at it maybe sometime later and try to see if there's maybe anything else that we could add into our main list. But where we're standing right now, I think at least from just one-on-one interview, that as far as we could get. Reviewing your code may bring some other kind of key factors here, but I think as far as now, that's already a pretty solid list. And like I said, we probably will not be doing all of them. But how about we just have a look at it now together and try to at least come with some rough prioritization that we later edit. So do you want to share your screen and we'll have a look at your...
Yeah, cool. I was thinking either that or shall I put it in a shared Google document and then we can both tinker it?
That? Yeah, you could do that as well. So you know what? I would rather than prioritizing them from top to the bottom, 1 to 19, I would probably just split them into categories, and these would be something like must,
Okay, yeah.
Then
wicked.
Optional. These are on two different ends of the spectrum. And here I would say brief. So here what I'm thinking is things that kind of like Docker, where you just want to give it a shot, but not sort of spend a lot of time on it. Here would be things that you probably want to really get into and get a good understanding of them. And here everything else that we think we probably could skip. Right?
Yeah, wicked.
And again, we could be wrong about all this, but let's just give it a shot. Right, so I'm thinking that definitely building a... Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the numbers, because that is one
go for it.
will not need anymore. And, right. So that is definitely a must, right? What else do we have here? I mean, feel free to speak and suggest other things.
No, I love it, mate.
So the
I can see where you're going with this.
Redux will be either a must or a brief, depending on how often do you see this coming up. I'm kind of feeling it more likely it's going to be a must.
Yeah.
At a time. Right, so terminal, I'm actually going from the back. It will be a brief one. Just get a little bit extra on that and it will be fine. Map reduce filter, I probably would put it as optional. You did it.
Cool.
That is cool. That is fine.
Yeah.
Right. Debugger. I'm in between these two. Must or brief. Probably if you just do a bit.
I mean, to be honest, I reckon I'd pick it up pretty quickly. I get what it does. It's just I haven't had a fiddle with it.
Right. And frankly,
I mean, if I get the chance to use it, I will.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm pretty confident I could get competent in that within a day, maybe less.
Yes, that's right. That's not a week worth of here is not only how long you could in terminal, for instance, you could spend years learning it and there'll be still new things. So it's not only that. We mean it as a brief, as in just do a little bit of it, but there are also things that just won't take a lot, like the debugger.
Yeah.
Passing props through multiple components. Frankly, I'm not sure about this one. How do you feel?
I guess it comes under the list of I've done it. All I would do would just go and check my old to-do list code and just have a read of that and just to see how a more intricate React app works. So that to-do list where you can add components and delete them, that's a bit more complicated than the two apps that I built. But even just rereading the code and understanding it will probably do. So that's just go brief.
I'll probably say let's keep it as optional. Pick up some tiny freelance jobs. No.
Upwork, that's supposed to say. Text editor it's got a shit spell check on.
Yeah. Right. Well, these aren't really things that you necessarily have to do. They're completely optional. So it may be good, but maybe you could just go ahead and go for job applications when you're ready. So
yeah.
Make better code option code. Different methods and structures. I mean, mate, I would feel like I would like to give this a shot for an hour, and if you can't come up with anything, then not do it. Just to kind of see if you can apply this new knowledge that you got to it.
Yeah.
Still, it's an optional, but I almost feel like it's almost like a different thing.
Yeah.
I just want you to do it, but it's not necessarily that we're putting it in this categorization here.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
To store data, persist between refreshes. Yes, so I feel that here it would be a good idea to do a simple Firebase, storing data in the database, push to the client. So these are all the same things essentially. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna copy
like-
paste this. And I'm feeling a bit like putting it in the optional, so potentially that will be moved, okay? But it will be good. Like, it will be a pretty solid skill, I feel.
Yeah.
Right. Dev and prod merging, rollback. Yeah, so you definitely mentioned that you want to go over that, but that again is a brief thing to go through. So it would be good to get back to it, verify that you're confident with it.
Oh.
And I'll also say create and merge a pull request. So you can go over that. Again, one of those things you just say, have you ever done it? Yep, done. Storing data in the database. No. Form input and validation. Right. I think you have to answer this. How do you feel?
I've not really had any experience with doing anything other than like a basic HTML search box.
Okay. Right.
But you know, I'm sure I could pick it up. It's just I have minimal experience in it.
Right.
So, you know, creating an input in HTML and then having all those other attributes that, you know, collect the data, where do they send it, yada, yada, yada.
Okay, I'm kind of feeling like it's an optional.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
because it is true you'd be using it, but it's one of those things that somebody just tells you, hey, can you like fix this form?
Yeah.
And you just Google, oh, what does a button do in a form?
Good point. Yeah.
It is quite fundamental HTML, but it's not necessarily something.
It's more likely that I'll be correcting someone else's code rather than building mine from scratch.
And frankly, even if you do, like, you just question yourself, okay, how can I introduce, you know, radio buttons? And you just read up about it and done.
Yeah.
You know, problem solved.
Yeah.
Because there's frankly quite a lot of these different input types, and just going on all of them
Yeah.
just almost be pointless.
All right.
Right. Non-react, manipulation. So did you think about anything else than like find element by ID? Because I know you know this. Have you thought about anything else?
Well, I do and I don't. Like I looked over DOM manipulation, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, but didn't understand JavaScript at the time. So
Right.
it didn't really sink in. But I'm sure if I went back and looked at my notes, I would understand what each of those little functions do now. So even if I just spend 30 minutes to an hour,
Okay. So maybe just
understand,
reading.
like, yeah, just refreshing what get element does and create. I think create element I haven't really got my head around, because I know React does all that for me,
Yeah,
but
you
it's kind of
never
like
use it.
I've missed that middle step. Again, I'd like to know the interior, but I probably don't have to.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. Yeah, but honestly, mate, I don't think I've created a single HTML element directly with JavaScript ever. Funny
Yeah,
enough.
okay, stick it in brief. I can spend 5, 10, 30 minutes
Do a
on it.
refresher. Yeah, definitely.
Job done.
Okay, so Sass, I'd be happy for you to kind of just start using it from now on. So being familiar with it, that'll be good. Yeah, I did say declare variable. I'll try to go back to this and add maybe more points later.
Yeah.
Build ground reading both. How to create a build system. Right, I'm just thinking about this one now. It's probably optional. You know what? We're gonna put it this way. We're gonna get you to maybe read about like gulp. Read about, and then we're gonna say as an optional, create your own build system. Yeah, we may move this up, but for now I feel like if you just got an idea about it, that probably would be enough. Yeah, it's worth having there. Actually, it's worth doing, but we are trying to reduce these as much as we can, giving you our situation and how soon we want to move ahead. Also remembering that will take, a good month. So, for now, let's maybe keep it here.
Yeah.
Okay. And Docker, again, I feel very similar about this. Like, it'd be really good if you knew this. I'd like the core basic level, what it does, how to download a image and run it on your machine. Yeah, mate. Fuck. You know what we can do? You say you've got other mates that are like web developers and all that, right? Mm-hmm. Could we say that we put these things in optional, and then you're going to ask them about this list again and try to get them to verify it for us? At least one other developer.
Yeah.
So they could look at it and maybe to them it will be like, oh, definitely don't do gulp or definitely don't do debugger.
Yeah.
But you should definitely know about Docker because like everything is using it now. Or other way around, right?
Yeah.
I feel that at least get a bit of an opinion on it. I don't think we may necessarily want to act on it directly, but at least hear it would be a good idea.
Yeah, cool.
Not to say that I feel that I'm not trying to say that like my word would be above somebody else's, but I'm at least pretty confident about this stuff and that stuff here. Yeah, I would suggest, definitely without this, you shouldn't start sending portfolios. Getting some Firebase knowledge in there will, database interaction, that will be quite cool, quite key. Using Sass, again, same thing. I mean, fair enough. And we've got a pretty small list already, which is good.
Yeah.
So we are very likely to add a little bit to it. So that will grow. Mm-hmm. But it looks doable. It looks manageable, right? Even if you hypothesize that you'd spend a week doing the brief stuff, you'd spend a week doing each of these individual items that we have over here, and then a month doing that, then we're still looking at about a couple of months before you'd be ready. Right?
That's cool, mate. Yeah.
It's kind of my logic.
Yeah, I mean, even before I mapped out my roadmap, I was aiming for mid-July just on the basis I had a stag do then. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I get to that level and even land a job so I can go on the stag do knowing I've got a job on the way back. So that was my dream. So I was aiming for around this time anyway. I still know I got a month to play with. Okay. I think what it is I hadn't verbalized that to my folks. They just didn't know what my plan was, which is my mistake, really.
Fair play. And it was a blurry line. I think it's a pretty blurry line. We're just getting some estimate here, but
but this is cool because I've got a more concise route now, I guess.
Yeah.
And like you say, I mean, I could have applied 2 weeks ago, maybe even 2 months ago, but I would have been coming in at a lower level and not burning a few bridges because obviously there's billions of jobs out there, not billions, but there's a fair bit. But I definitely, and portfolio I would have done anyway before I'd have started applying just to house the two projects. Yeah. But that extra knowledge, like you say, is going to increase my chances of even getting the interview.
Right, actually.
That's another thing as well.
Definitely. No, as we were speaking, another thing came to my head. Bootstrap. Have you used Bootstrap or other type of like sort of styling framework? Yeah.
I did that site for my sister-in-law.
Oh, good.
Which I could potentially put in my portfolio.
I
should put it in my portfolio.
Definitely should. Yeah. Right. And do you think we should put it in any sort of review, or you're pretty confident with Bootstrap? I mean, again,
pretty.
Not a master of.
Straightforward, really.
Yeah, true. You know how to apply like rows and columns, right?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but at the time I did.
Cool.
So yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. It was more the fiddly fucking CSS centering and positioning that's always the case. Usually catches me out.
Yeah,
exactly,
that's always fucking annoying. Mate, and one more thing. Have you ever used Flexbox in CSS?
Yes. Yeah.
How-
Flexbox, Grid.
How do you feel about Flexbox?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah? Decent.
Yeah, pretty good with those two.
That
yeah.
is amazing. All right. That's really good. Cool. Yeah, we should actually put another list here and list everything you already have done, just to have a good grasp on, and the work already has been done to put this out of perspective.
Would be huge. Yeah, I mean, if anything, I've got it in another document. I've got a list of everything that I've attacked at through going through it. So I've probably got that list somewhere.
Right.
But
There we go.
yeah.
Okay. So one thing I'm already noticing is that portfolio. This will probably be the last thing you do. That's you utilizing everything you learned till date, essentially. And
Yeah.
when you do that, you're done. That's what we're kind of aiming at, I think. I bet that whilst building the portfolio, maybe some other things will come up, and I think it's a good idea that we'll just be kind of handling them as we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I figured it's a bit like an MVP. Like I'll finish finish the portfolio, but then every time I learn something new, I can add on top of it, if that makes sense. If I need to.
Yeah.
'Cause I mean, I guess as soon as I get a job,
You drop it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm
pretty
so
much.
embarrassed
And-
about my portfolio I made some 5 years ago, and I haven't really touched it much since then, and it's pretty fucking embarrassing, but it served the purpose. I got a job.
Yeah, needed to, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other stuff I've done is I've pretty much drafted my resume and my CV, except for tailoring it to the specific job application. But all the other points I've drafted a fairly. I mean, I can get you to have a look at it later down the line, but
Yeah.
it's. I sensed that I was near the end of the learning and time to apply anyway. So I've been doing all this stuff in the background ready. So
Cool. Decent.
interview prep, I don't need to improve any social skills and all that kind of shit.
Good.
Because I've already got them. And I guess I hear about whiteboard and tech. What do they call them? Like the almost like edabit when you're at the job, like a job interview, and the coding challenges. What are they called? I guess it's a technical interview.
Okay.
But I don't know how often that happens with jobs.
I doubt you'd get much of that on the junior. First of all, second of all, it doesn't really happen that often, and thirdly, unpopular opinion, but I think they're shit, and they're a bad idea.
I think it's quite a common opinion. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I feel that it's become that in the recent years. Like I've heard a lot of people saying that more and more, especially when you get really heavy sort of software development questions, like theoretical, and your job is going to be building websites, and it's valid that it was important some time ago when the power, the average phone was shit and average computer was shit in terms of hardware, but nowadays it really doesn't matter that much, depending on the application, but it doesn't really matter that much. I think it's what's more important is the idea that when time comes for optimization, and you can recognize it and then optimize stuff, for instance, and then you know how to look for this information, right? Rather than off the top of your head, do some ridiculous algorithms, right?
Because I think those, from what I've read, it's more around software engineering positions if you're applying for Google and Amazon and stuff like that.
Yeah, and frankly,
that ain't going to be relevant.
Frankly, even then, it's arguable why they do it. I suppose it helps them. Fair play. I'm not going to argue with that. Haven't worked at Google, so my brother worked at Google. Did I tell you that?
Did he?
Yeah,
I think you might have done ages ago.
Yeah, he's been a software dev there for about 6 years, I think.
Okay.
Cool job.
Nice. Yeah.
Right. So that looks pretty good. So what I think we're gonna do now is that we've got the making the better code on your coaching app. Trying to look at that again. Give it an hour. If you can't figure it out, I'll talk you through it. I'll just give you a few other suggestions how this could be done, and we'll just talk about them. So we get your brain working on these ideas, but it's not compulsory that you figure it out by yourself.
Yeah.
Do figure out how relevant Redux is. And then, depending on that, do basic reading or learn it properly.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it is really relevant with React development these days, you should just learn it, right? And that may take a while, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at at least few weeks of you really getting into it, right? When it comes to Firebase, what I think I'll put together another sort of exercise for you is just it won't be sort of fleshed out. We won't be working on CSS and HTML and make it look pretty.
Yeah.
We'll just be looking at, can you make it work, but using the API. And ideally, it would be fun to actually even have you set up your Firebase from like the console, so that you're not just sort of interacting with it, but you learn a little bit about how to set it up. And I just briefly, I'm going to show you how this looks, so you get a feel for it. If I go to my Firebase console, you'll see roughly what I'm talking about here, because it's a good experience to play with some of these consoles and just look at your data, and see what you've got in there. So I was doing this course recently. So generally in Firebase, you've got a number of these services they provide here on the left, and as you can see, there is a fair amount of them. Each one of them is like a good chunk they need to learn. But for instance, when it comes to something like storage, to be able to access it so that you'd get experience in like accessing something like that, understanding where your data live. In this particular case, they use something called storage rules as well, which define who can access, who can not access it, etc. But you can also look at the usage, So just to be familiar with accessing something like that, right? Like you've seen it before. You can say that you know how to click through these things, how to inspect a database, right?
Yeah.
So all that will probably start with you just doing a little bit of reading on databases, right? And I probably encourage you that you do go ahead with the non-relational databases. So just read up a little bit about basics of something like MongoDB. Mongo will look in a very similar way to this. I can actually quickly show you. I've got my Mongo running right here.
Do they do pretty much the same thing then, MongoDB and Firebase?
They don't do the same thing, but they look the same. You could sort of make that claim. So they're relational databases. They're essentially are all going to look the same. Like you'll see that data is structured in the same way. It's just they present it in a different way, maybe. So that's one thing. And the way you interact with them is different. So in that sense, they don't do the exactly same thing.
Yeah.
But
they're both databases.
At its core, essentially, yeah. So let's see if I... so you can see here, I've got some like higher level, something we call database, collections. These would be, these are databases. There we go. So these are databases, these are collections, and then these are entries or documents, essentially. And you can kind of get an idea of like this hierarchical, relationship between these things, right? And the further I go, the more I can just kind of dig in, and at the end of it, I have some data. Well, very similarly here, in this case, actually, I don't have anything, but you can see like some higher level, then lower level, and then yet lower level. It's the same thing, probably. That will be a database, that will be your collection, that would be your document. When you read about it, it will make sense, but generally that's the way you interact with it. Just so you know what happens, why do you have to have always a key and a value? It's very similar to how JSON is structured, so you probably have an easy time learning about it, just so you go through it, right? Just so you go through it and you know what it is. Just as simple as that. Yeah. But what we want to do is that when you learn about interacting with the Firebase just a tiny bit, so you can come here, click at it, and see that your data is in fact being written in, and you can kind of inspect it, and you can come here. Even though it's not going to serve any purpose, but just so you get that tiny bit of practice of interacting with something like that. I'm still like arguing with myself whether this is a must, whether we shouldn't put that as optional. But again, I felt like if you get a little bit of information about how these things really work, then you as a front-end developer who'll never in the end look at this, at the least you'll know what's happening in the back of it, without ever needing to write it. Because essentially, back in the days, you'd write all that yourself. This is a backend, and they're providing it to you as a service, right? So we could, for instance, also register a user. In this case, I don't have any users registered, so we don't see it right here. But it'll be a task as simple as going to the docs and reading up about it. And Google Docs are essentially pretty good and pretty well written. So if you could go get started for web, and they tell you about like how it authenticates yourself and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how difficult that would be for you to go through this journey of, well, okay, here's a bit more complex API that you've never worked with. Can you go there? Can you read about, okay, what do you need to do to create a Firebase project? They will describe to you how to go over here, go to your console, create one of these projects, register your app with Firebase. Then they're going to give you a little bit of code you need to copy paste into your code, and then there's going to be even more code. Over here you've got some authentication with your Firebase. So just I'm wondering whether you're capable of like just going through this whole process and going, okay, well, now I've authenticated myself. I need to go and actually read up about how do I do it? How do I do it for web? And that whole process. And there we want to notice, where are you stopping? Where are you getting to a point where it just doesn't work? And probably more on a basis of, right, go as far as you can with this. The moment you get stuck, stop, note where it is, send me a message, and start reading about something else. Start doing some Sass, start doing some Redux, go to terminal. I'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. Resume that process so you can push ahead with Firebase. And just go ahead again and see how much further you can go. But as you can see, these are just relatively simple JavaScript requests, essentially what you're doing here. It's quite chained, so you have these, dot something, dot something, dot something. But you can see there's very nice, for instance, promise signature that you're familiar with here, right? So you're already familiar with how these things work normally, but I feel here we'll catch a little bit of maybe what's still missing. And again, I feel if we do authentication, database, and storage, these three simple things, what I'm thinking is that you'll step even further ahead on front of the league of just base level junior developers that are just coming with pure React knowledge, and they don't understand how these things work on the back. So that's kind of what I'm trying to. Again, I'm still not entirely sure about it, but I feel that this may be a good idea.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
There's no harm in it.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah. I'm kind of gouging, the fact that you do want to push ahead and like make things faster. So we're all looking through that lens as well. But how do you feel?
Yeah. I mean, I guess if we're looking at it as in time is the most important factor, I would lower its priority. But in terms of will it push me ahead of other competition, then yeah, it's worthwhile. I'll see how I get on with it. I mean, if it's super easy, I might fly through it, and well, not super easy, but if I manage to pick it up all right, then it's not going to be time wasted. And I think a lot of these things I'd be able to do in my sort of downtime, if that makes sense. Like they're not going to be super taxing. Like
right, yeah, especially the brief ones. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and yeah, we can play it by ear.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not on a time limit. It's not as if I have to, make the move ASAP.
Okay.
It's just to get an idea on when what that timeline looks like, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can play it by ear.
Good man,
as we say.
Good man. So I'm thinking like we could probably cut this off, but we will push it a little bit ahead of competition indeed if we try to introduce these things, which is bringing me to think that once we do that and see how well you do with these things, we'll have even more of a reason to go ahead and introduce you to Docker and to build systems, because that again will just get you that little further ahead of everyone else, I feel. Yeah. Okay.
No, valid
well, so let's start with Firebase, because I feel that covers a good degree of various things in just one small package, and we're just doing one exercise. I'll do a description for you. I'll list things that you'd be doing there. So forget about styling, forget about how it looks. You can just print things into console, literally. Like that's as little as we need right there. Just the experience of utilizing it is what we're looking for here. Okay, so that's that, and then we've got the Sass declare variable going ahead with Sass. Yes, when you get to build the portfolio or whatever else you would be building, and you will be using Sass, like I said, with Firebase you're not, but maybe with some other things you would be. Whatever it is that you're building from now on, try to just do it with Sass.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of good. And like you said, the remainder, the terminal, the debugger, the def prod merging, not React, DOM manipulation. Yeah, that does sound like sort of, do it in your downtime, sort of just read up about it.
Yeah.
Try to use it a bit. I'm having a feeling that maybe that one point, the dev and prod merging, if you like, we could sort of do we could do a session one day when we just spend an hour doing it together and we catch any sort of issues you may be having with it, I feel, because it seems like you've been sort of trying to bounce from this one subject for a while and it still didn't seem to sink in.
Yeah. Well, what would be cool is to do that session on my weather app, because I've got a couple of branches and they're all over the shop, so it would be good practice and possibly quite an interesting video as well if you wanted to film it, of sorting out where I'm going wrong, how to keep them separate, how to do a pull request, how to roll back, why. Because basically I've run builds on both the branches now, which I think I might have gone too far and shot myself in the foot. I've done something wrong. But
so I'm kind of feeling that if we went that way, maybe that session and that video would be just directed at fixing this one particular case with that would teach us knowledge that isn't really that useful anywhere else. Because if you went that far and you really screwed it up big time, it's a pretty rare thing. Like I said, I don't think you'd be expected to undo and unwind these kind of really tangled situations. So I think if we just focus on making sure you don't get to these situations in the future and just focus on that, you'll have less knowledge, but you'll sink in better. That's sort of what sounds better to me this time. So maybe I'm thinking if you do get to work on Firebase, although there you're not going to be deploying it, well, maybe we can do that with the we could probably just do it once you build your portfolio stuff. The moment you start it, we'll go and do that, because with the remainder of things, you will not be doing production and development, are you?
That's a good point.
If you're learning Redux, you'll have a project probably where you play with your code, but you won't be doing a production build for it. Firebase, neither. You'll just have one branch when you keep the stack. When it comes to your portfolio side, it will make sense to have a Well, maybe, did you put your coaching questions on Git? You did, haven't you?
Yeah, all of it's on Git. All the branches are on Git. When both projects, I think, are on GitHub Pages, but you needed to have done a build to host on Pages. But with Netlify, you don't. You just point it to the master branch and it does the building for you.
Right. But then have you got dev and production branch for coaching questions?
I think so. I can't remember.
Okay, because if you don't, then maybe we can just do it straight away. On that, we'll go over, creating a production branch, pushing it to the production branch. And then building your portfolio side will be a good test for you to figure out whether it really sunk in.
Yeah.
In a sense,
Yeah. So
figure it out. Figure if you've got branches.
Yeah, I mean the fact that I can't even answer the question proves that I haven't got to that level of level of knowledge on it yet. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So figure it out if you have them on production or not. If not, then we'll look at it then. Now, if not, if you do have them already on production and dev branches, then we'll do it when it comes to building your portfolio site. Simple as that.
I think at some stage I did, but I think I've fucked it up somewhere along the line, like merged one back into the other and gone too far and gone upstream, downstream, rebased, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh, okay.
So,
right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I'm sure you could look at and go, oh no, you just need to do that. Whereas I've just thought, oh, fuck it, I can't be pissed to work it out myself just yet. But I know I'll need to do some tweaking on both projects. Because the currently hosted weather app is the old version. Then it's that old shitty one.
Right.
But I fucked up the dev branch by running the build. I've done something wrong, but we can leave it for now. But when it comes to the portfolio site, they'll both need a bit of untangling.
You will need to host your weather app somewhere as well, and that will not be able to keep it fucked up. Then will we? So we'll come to this bridge one day.
Exactly. Good point. Yeah.
But let's first do the other one, the coaching questions. That seems to be less of an issue. Just do it right. Do it like a test, up push. Do a test pull request. Yeah, simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So I'm thinking we're roughly there for today. I think we just hit a couple of hours mark.
We have and some.
How are you feeling about what we discussed today?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, it's just good to have a look at what's left to do, because that's obviously going to be never ending anyway, but just to get a clear idea on where I could strengthen up and what else is going to put me in the best possible state for applications, really. So yeah, I'm loving the list. I'm excited by that list. And yeah, I think it's cool that, we've prioritized it as well, because, I could have, to be honest, I think part of me probably would have taken on the optional stuff first because it's easier. But
right.
the must stuff is the stuff that's gonna, it's got more leverage. So yep, feeling good, just feeling happy. I've got a bit clearer thanks to your delving and ability to know what's worth learning. Or prioritization. So yeah,
right. So we hope, because I could be completely wrong about that list. I'm just hoping that this is what they'll be looking for.
No, I think if all else fails, even if I've just got a portfolio site that houses both my projects in their current form, that's still better than nothing, and better than a lot of other candidates out there.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't know, looking at my weather app, that there's a way better version that exists.
Right.
But just the fact that I've got an app that was built in React and I've hosted it, that's not, that's still something. So
yeah, I mean, obviously that weather app, we may want to just polish it around the edges so it's all nice and clean the moment we start sending it stuff out. But that'll be like a day of extra, just let's add that little extra sugar on top, right? Keeping in mind that maybe some of the optional stuff will move up. That could happen as well. But
yeah,
we'll kind of focus on the musts for now. Get one of your mates to look at this. Try to explain sort of, the things that I've been explaining to you now, and explain why we're looking at Redux, Firebase, Sass right now. Why are we leaving the other things on the side? And just get them to freestyle whatever they may think about this. And we'll try to talk about it maybe next week.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I've got my list to get on with, and that'll keep me happy for however long it takes. So yeah, no, I appreciate your time and knowledge, and just guidance, mate. Because this list could go on forever and ever. So it's knowing what's worth it and when. So I appreciate your time as always, mate.
No problem. Try to keep those little things like map, reduce, regex, those things that seem useful, but maybe like promises, that feeling when you could spend forever, doing it, but then maybe you just get the gist of it and you can carry on. Try to keep it up that.
I think, just reminding myself of the big picture. Like it's more important that I, can deal with Sass rather than knowing how to do map from memory.
Yes, that's definitely a good way to put it.
I'm probably not, it's not even that important that I use Sass, because maybe designer side I'll be doing more of that, or like the UI
could be. Yeah,
I'm talking bollocks now, but you know what I mean.
Cool. Let's wrap it
up. Yeah. My brain's fried, and I've got to go and do my daily video now. So,
cool.
Wicked, mate. Well, I'll let you crack on with your evening.
Likewise.
Thank you as ever.
No problem, man. Great progress.
Yeah.
Keep the heads up, and yeah, you'll get there eventually. You're definitely closer than further away. So
thank you, mate. And thank you for your honesty throughout the journey. Like I haven't taken it as offense or criticism at all.
Appreciate it. I was actually just speaking to Marina about it yesterday. How happy I am you can take feedback and like you don't get it personal.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes it so much easier to like drop some of these bombs and like be honest about stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it was a bomb because I knew that was the case. It was just
Fair play, yeah.
Give me a rough outline of what's roughly left, and I'll crack on with it. Like no qualms.
Yeah. So you know, without making it a promise, but we're looking at probably 2-3 months. I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Happy with that.
Good man.
Awesome.
Keep it up.
Wicked. All right, mate.
All right.
I will catch you again soon.
Catch you later, man. All right. Cheers.
All right.
Bye bye.